The European Parliament's Socialists and Democrats party could ally with progressives to stop the rise of the far right in June's EU elections.
The UK and US have thwarted the largest Houthis rebel group attack against international cargo ships in the Red Sea so far. The US Secretary of State met the Palestinian president in Ramallah on Wednesday to discuss, quote, administrative reforms. Among other things, Anthony Blinken reiterated US support for, quote, tangible steps towards establishing a Palestinian state. The meeting was part of the US's post-war recovery strategy for the enclave. While the US Secretary of State and the Palestinian leader discussed the future, outside a peaceful demonstration against Blinken's visit ended in clashes with the police. The US-supported vision faces significant obstacles, particularly due to the firm opposition of Benjamin Netanyahu's Israeli government against the creation of a Palestinian state alongside Israel. In Gaza, the fighting continues, fueling a growing humanitarian crisis. Tuesday's evening's airstrike hit a 4-story building west of Rafah City, causing the deaths of at least 14 people and injuring around 20, including women and children, according to local authorities. US and UK warships in the Red Sea have reportedly shot down the largest ever barrage of missiles and drones fired by Houthi rebels at international shipping. The Yemeni militants have been attacking merchant vessels approaching the Suez Canal for months in retaliation for Israel's offensive in Gaza. The US says 18 drones and 3 missiles were shot down in the latest attack and that no ships were damaged.
The Houthis have received both support and weaponry from Iran as that war has gone on. Recently, though, the Houthis have begun launching attacks targeting ships in the Red Sea. The rebels say this is to support Palestinians stuck in the Gaza Strip amid Israel's war on Hamas, though many of the ships that they've been attacking don't have any clear links to Israel.
The Houthis denied they are launching the attacks at Iran's behest. In a recent interview with Euronews, a Houthi spokesman said the rebels only targeted ships linked to Israel.
أعلنت صنعاء بشكل واضح أن السفن الإسرائيلية أو المتجهة إلى إسرائيل أو التي لها علاقة بإسرائيل هي المستهدفة فقط. بقية سفن العالم بلا استثناء ليست مستهدفة. ولذلك أمريكا لم تستطع أن تقنع العالم أن هناك مخاطر حقيقية تستهدف البحر الأحمر، فالممرات الدولية آمنة ومستقرة ولا يوجد فيها أي مشاكل.
The largest Houthi assault came as the UN Security Council prepared to vote on a draft resolution condemning their actions and demanding an immediate halt to attacks on shipping. The resolution called for the immediate release of the Galaxy Leader cargo vessel, which was seized in November along with its crew.
The Socialists and Democrats, the second biggest group in European Parliament, will focus on stopping the anticipated rise of the far right in June's upcoming European elections. This trend can be found in Germany, where the far-right Alternative for Germany party is leading the polls. The leader of the German Socialists has warned against flirting with far-right ideologies.
Ich würde hier auch im Herz der Demokratie jedem Demokraten, der das von sich behauptet, raten, nicht mit dem Gedanken zu spielen, mit den Antidemokraten, mit den Rechtsradikalen, mit faschistoiden Tendenzen in irgendeiner Form auch nur gedanklich zusammenarbeiten zu wollen. Das ist der erste Schritt, der auch die Axt möglicherweise an die Demokratie legt.
Germany is one of the only 8 member states of the EU that has a centre-left government, a coalition with the Liberals and the Greens. This could be a model for a future coalition in European Parliament, says the leader of the group, who also says the centre-left and centre-right could work together.
Of course, we prefer with the progressive forces, but if it's not enough, we have to understand that it's necessary to do other alliance with the pro-European. Pro-European means traditional conservatives, liberals and us. Greens and left.
The credibility of the European socialists was damaged last year by the EU's biggest corruption scandal so far, the so-called Qatar Gate, where some of their MEPs were suspects. According to polls, at EU elections, extremists and right-wing parties will gain, whilst mainstream parties like the centre-left will lose some of their seats. The left now wants to concentrate on the cost of living crisis during the campaign.
The European centre-left approved its manifesto during a congress last November with the motto Progressive Solutions for Global Challenges. And they will reconvene again early March to select the leading candidates. Many in the party defend that it should be a woman. Isabel Marques da Silva, Euronews in Brussels.
Mariusz Kaminsky, one of two serving PIS party MPs arrested on Tuesday, has gone on hunger strike in prison. Kaminsky and Mariusz Kaminsky were sentenced last month to 2 years in prison for dereliction of duty when they worked at the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau.
Wiemy, że w okolicach kancelarii prezydenta gromadzone są siły policyjne w celu zatrzymania nas i mamy do czynienia z bardzo poważnym kryzysem państwa. Anarchia w sądach, jawny bunt w Sądzie Najwyższym. Będziemy na manifestacji, będziemy z przyzwoitymi, normalnymi Polakami, którzy są zaniepokojeni tym, co wyprawia rząd Donalda Tuska.
There have been questions around the two imprisoned MPs' immunity, but Poland's ruling coalitions say the chaos is one of PIS party's own making and that Kaminsky and Kaminsky are trying to escape criminal responsibility.
Spodziewaliśmy się, że partia, która przegrała te wybory, będzie jednak za wszelką cenę szukała różnych sztuczek, żeby sprawić wrażenie, że oni nadal mają wpływ na to, co się dzieje, a to wszystko odbywa się już poza ramami prawnymi. Oni po prostu nadużywają władzy, nadużywają pozycji ze szkodą dla państwa polskiego.
When the arrest took place, PIS party supporters gathered to protest in front of the presidential palace.
Wejście na teren Pałacu Prezydenckiego i zabranie do więzienia ułaskawionych przez prezydenta ludzi, to jest jak dyktatura, jak bezprawie. A ja nie chcę mieszkać w jakimś takim kraju bezprawia. Dlatego tu jestem.
Another point of contention is President Andrzej Duda's presidential pardon to Kaminsky and Kaminsky before the final court judgment was announced, meaning some recognise it and others do not. Meanwhile, other protests erupted at the police station. Other PIS MPs tried to intervene and enter the station with their parliamentary IDs, but without success.
These people behind me have just announced their readiness to continue their long fight for Poland of their values. The ruling coalition has promised the same, with a policy of decisive steps. Magdalena Wdownik for Euronews from Warsaw.
The military on high alert in Ecuador following a surge in violence in recent days. This after the country's most notorious gang leader and drug lord, Adolfo Macias, escaped from prison on Sunday. President Daniel Noboa on Monday declared a 60-day state of emergency in response to a wave of attacks inside and outside of prison. A day later, he issued a revised decree designating 20 drug trafficking gangs as terrorist groups and military targets. That same day, a group of masked men crashed into a public television studio, waving guns and explosives. The scene was broadcast live for some 15 minutes. Ecuador's police chief says all 13 gunmen were later arrested and will be charged with terrorism. Meanwhile, the whereabouts of Macias, leader of the notorious Los Choneros gang, remains unknown. Also referred to as Fito, he's serving a 34-year sentence for drug trafficking, murder and organised crime. He was due to be transferred to a maximum security facility on the day of his disappearance. Los Choneros is one of the Ecuadorian gangs authorities believe to be responsible for the spike in violence. The 60-day state of emergency declared on Monday allows the authorities to suspend rights and mobilise the military in places like prisons. It also imposed a curfew from 11 in the evening until 5 in the morning. The president has vowed he'll not stop until he brings back peace for all Ecuadorians.
Countless tiny plastic pellets are washing up on the shores of northern Spain after a container fell off a cargo ship last month. The regional governments of Galicia and its neighboring region of Asturias declared an environmental emergency on Tuesday.
Esto hace ya un mes del accidente, hace ya 2 semanas de que se viene alertando de que en las playas hay una llegada masiva de estas bolitas y sin en cambio el gobierno autonómico no ha hecho nada. Vemos una inacción, una demora enorme, una pasividad ante el problema y que solo actúan cuando ya se ven apretados mediáticamente y con un clamor de la población.
On Monday, Spanish state prosecutors opened an investigation. Prosecutors fear the pellets could have toxic properties and said there are indications that they have also landed on French shores.
Sabemos que puede tener relación con un estabilizador UV, o sea, que sean parte de los aditivos que estábamos comentando antes, que son disruptores endocrinos y que son potencialmente tóxicos. En cualquiera de los casos, el desastre ambiental es igual de notorio, sea un aditivo, sea un polímero base. Es materia prima que no debería estar en el medio ambiente.
Volunteers and workers have organized a cleanup for the beaches and coasts of the area, which largely depend on the fish and shellfish industry. Environmentalists warn of an economic problem for fishermen and shellfish harvesters. They also predict a public health problem since these fishes end up on the plates of restaurants and/or homes.